This video is sponsored by americascardroom.com, where US players are welcome. Use the code POKERGUYS to get a 100% deposit bonus up to $1,000 when you sign up.
ACR always has great stuff going on, but going on right now until September 11th is the Boss Series. It's for the high rollers, and it culminates in a $2,100 main event with a $500K guarantee. Get an ACR and get rich in that Boss Series.
Like a boss!
The hand we're going to show you and break down today once again features Tom Dwan and Patrik Antonius, two guys we've seen go at it before on the breakdown. In this instance, they're playing in a really high stakes heads-up cash game in Australia.
Yeah, it's a great hand. The stakes are actually, the blinds are 1,000, 2,000, and somehow there's a $500 ante as well. These guys are super deep, like over $500,000 each. So there's a lot of play to be had.
Some interesting decisions for sure. And this was suggested to us on Twitter by Dan with like an Enye on the end. So Danya.
It's not something like umlaut?
Oh, he's got something over the A, and then he's got
Enye? Isn't that like sail away? Is that the woman who
that's
sings?
Enya.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Speaking of music, get ready for some cool music during this hand. Anyway, if you have a suggestion for the breakdown, tweet it at us and include a YouTube link and a timestamp.
Absolutely. Now we're going to break this hand down as we go. So get ready for some analysis.
Weak players. These guys are kind of battling it out with their egos, too.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing about it. It may be more about the ego than it is about the money.
Dwan here has raised it up with 9-7 offsuit, and Antonius defends with pocket sevens.
5, 6, 8.
Oh, wow. Tom Dwan flopped the nuts. Now, Patrik Antonius has second pair to the board and an open-ended straight draw. Not a bad flop for pocket sevens either.
And Dwan bets 12,000. And a very quick call from Antonius.
Yep. Now, if Antonius catches a 4, he could be in a world of hurt.
It's another 7. Wow.
Well, it's got the best of it with a 9. You know, but do you put Dwan on a straight here if he bets the turn? And he checked it back.
Pretty cool check there by Dwan on the turn for sure, but not really as cool as that awesome 80s atmospheric action music. I'm thinking Terminator, like James Cameron.
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like somebody's about to get murdered. It's definitely terrifying music.
Come with me if you want to live.
Anyway, to the poker.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk a little bit about Patrik's check here. It is very obvious this is the right play.
Yeah.
But he does have a set. And I want to make it clear, his intention is not to check raise. He's checking to check call because he still has a lot of equity to realize, but he doesn't want to get blown off the pot.
Right. I mean, if Patrik were to check raise here, first of all, what's it getting called by? Second of all, we can get 3-bet. It's a disaster. We just don't want to put ourselves in that spot.
It's a very clear check call spot.
It's nothing.
Yeah, and he would be happy to call because Dwan, of course, does not have to have a straight,
right?
Which Dwan does have, and he makes the really interesting decision to check back here.
Yeah, we kind of love it, actually.
Yeah.
We figured Dwan's checking pretty much all of his value here. He's checking the bottom end of the straight, usually here on the turn. Also, any 2-pair hands, sets himself, things like that, because you just don't want to get check raised or put in lots of money when you're way behind. So because of that, Dwan decides to also check back really the top of his range. 9-10 is the absolute top for sure. But this is a hand he could decide to bet, but there's so few hands he's betting for value, he decides to throw the 9 in there too.
It makes sense because once you bet on a board like this, you immediately become polarized. And Dwan doesn't want to do that quite yet. Also, Dwan's a guy who can make up for missed value later. We've seen it before, and we might see him try to do it again in this hand.
Absolutely. So Dwan might bet air here. He might bet 9-10 here, and he might bet 9s sometimes here. That's probably it.
Yeah, so what Dwan is doing is missing out on some value here. That is the one downfall. If Antonius turned 2-pair or a set like he did, you're obviously missing out on a bet. But Dwan doesn't care what the size of the pot is. This is no limit Texas Hold'em, and Tom Dwan knows that and uses it to his advantage a lot. He can bet more than the pot, less than the pot, a lot more than the pot, whatever he wants.
They might say it's no fate, but what you make.
And it is an 8 on the river, and Antonius has caught a full boat.
Well, this is really interesting because Tom Dwan checked the turn, and I was thinking he was going to raise any river. Now the board is paired, but Antonius checks the full house, and Tom Dwan's definitely going to bet here with a straight for value, and Antonius is going to check raise the river.
And now Tom Dwan is going to bet with his straight. $68,000 to bet to Antonius, and of course we'll jump this.
Yeah, heads up, I think that there is huge value in a check raise here. I mean, obviously he can't beat eights full, but the way that this hand has been played, I think he's trying to induce bluffs, trying to get Tom Dwan to make some thin river value bets, and he is definitely going to check raise.
Well, there he goes.
And those are the placards. 25,000 each. Wow.
He's going to raise it to 162,000.
Wow,
That's it.
Dwan instantly folds his hand. He doesn't take any time with it at all.
All right, that was a crazy river, right? We're going to start looking at this with Patrick's initial check, which is a bit unorthodox considering the strength of his hand.
Yeah, also based on the action of the pot so far, right? Like, Dwan checks back the turn, so we think he's often got showdownable hands, but often not super strong hands. Now, it turns out he actually has a 9 here, but we'd expect him to bet a 9 at least a bunch of the time, right? So I would expect Patrick to bet a hand this strong usually rather than check, hoping to get more action that way. Although what I think he's trying to do is capture Dwan's air.
Right, he is, but it seems likely that Tom would have bet air on the turn. That's a good card to bet with air. Maybe Dwan's checking back all turns, that's possible.
Yeah.
But in a standard world, it seems like a spot to bet the bottom of your range, so it's less likely that Dwan has air here on the river. So when Patrick doesn't bet, he's missing out on value from hands like ace-6 and ace-7, one pair type hands, that definitely would call but probably won't bet.
Also over pairs, all those one pairs really, but even the best one pairs are going to check the turn. Probably call a lot of rivers though if Patrick bets.
Yeah, so we think Patrick is potentially missing out on value in that way.
Yeah.
It turns out Tom Dwan's not going to let Patrick miss out on value. He's not going to allow that to happen. And Patrick's plan clearly is to check raise, and the announcer is saying this is a clear spot for a check raise. But Tom Dwan's action here maybe should mess with that a little bit and make you rethink that idea.
Right. If Dwan bets a normal amount, like 20,000 into this 39,000 chip pot, $39 pot even, because they're playing for real money, then a check raise makes all the sense in the world because it looks like Dwan is going for normal value. But Dwan doesn't do that. He bets 68,000. Whoa, that's so polarizing. Can sevens full get value by check raising is our question.
That's a really important question, and Patrick obviously thinks they can. It's possible he got caught up in the idea of check raising and kind of followed through with that plan.
Maybe.
But when Dwan bets nearly twice the pot here, what do we expect to get value from when we check raise? Is Dwan going to call with a 9? I don't think so. It doesn't look like it.
Clearly not.
Yeah. So obviously this is results oriented, but Dwan snap folding a 9 here shows that Patrick really can't get value for much because Dwan to pay off, it looks like would have to have 5s full or 6s full.
Yeah.
And might even consider folding those with the EC folded at 9. So maybe we're only getting action from 8s full then?
Well, that would be a problem for sure. I mean, we were way behind in this hand. We can't know that as Patrick, but then he came back like Schwarzenegger.
I'll be back.
What?
But now we're in this spot where, a bet is probably better. But there is one dynamic which may be in play which makes this okay. They've been playing heads up for a while now, and Patrick has been holding over Dwan. He's been making the best hand left and right, been able to get a lot of raises and then things like that. And it's possible that Patrick's been check raising the river enough that he thinks Dwan's just going to have to start calling with a wider range than he might normally do so.
Right, maybe even a bit of a tilt factor because Dwan has been getting run over by Patrick, not because Patrick's outplaying him, but because the deck's been outplaying him.
Right.
So Patrick might assume that Dwan has a wider hero calling range here because he's tilting. Turns out Dwan's not tilting at all, at least in this spot. It makes this excellent, amazing fold. It just seems like, I don't know, Patrick's play is not really that great.
It does seem very questionable for sure. If he knew Dwan could so easily fold this 9, like boom, colder than, a robot, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example, like a Terminator robot, then then he might not make such a play, right? He may not go for the check raise. But it's hard to imagine someone wouldn't strongly consider at least with a 9, but Dwan's just like, bam.
Yeah, and Patrick must think that Dwan thinks that Patrick has bluffs in his range. With this quick of a fold, it looks like Dwan does not think that when Dwan sizes to this huge amount that Patrick will have any bluffs, or else he would have at least taken a second and considered maybe Patrick has a bluff. He's a good enough player. He's not going to make a snap decision without having thought it through.
It harkens back to a hand we broke down many a moon ago called It's Impossible with Galen Hall and Chris Oliver in a very similar spot where Chris Oliver with a full house, their heads up for the PCA championship, checks. Galen Hall bets a made straight on the river. Hall check raises huge after Galen bet a little bit more than the pot, and Hall gets away from his straight, even though they're heads up, and it's for the PCA.
Right.
Really an amazing spot. Both times, though, the player bets more than the pot and then is able to get away from it because it's so hard to be bluffing when someone check raises there.
Tom Dwan knows he's not bluffing. He knows it looks like he's not bluffing, so
Right.
he can't really call with just a 9, and he figures it out immediately.
It's possible that Dwan's bluffing, but when he's bluffing, it doesn't matter what he has.
Yeah, of course.
So he's polarized anyway.
Yeah, and this is a great laydown.
To see our responses to our favorite comments from you on this video, click right here.
Tom Dwan plays interesting poker, right? You guys just saw it, right? You
Yeah.
want to see some more Tom Dwan, right?
Sure.
Right? I sound like a really bad salesman,
Yes.
but you should click right here to see our playlist of Tom Dwan hands. Obviously, a lot of really cool plays in there.
Obviously. Also, check out our podcast, and we'll see you next week.